In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a positive number to a negative number. So here we want to compute negative 2 plus 3. We're adding the positive number 3 to the negative number negative 2. One way that we can visualize what's happening is by constructing a number line. So let's go ahead and make a number line here. Get our straight edge, draw a segment, put some arrows on it, and let's make some tick marks too, because we're going to be traveling on this number line. So what we want to do with this number line is we want to start at negative 2 and then add 3 to that. So make 3 jumps in the positive direction, in the right direction. So that means we should put negative 2 somewhere on the left of our number line. So how about negative 2 goes right here. That way we have room to jump to the right. And let's just fill in the rest of the tick marks. So negative 2 and then decreasing more, that's negative 3. And increasing goes negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we want to start at negative 2. So that's what we're going to start with. Put a dot there for negative 2. And then we want to make a jump of 3 in the positive direction. How we can do that is we can just make 3 unit jumps in the positive direction. 1, 2, 3, because then when we put them together, we'll get a single jump of plus 3. And then where do we end up? Well, we end up right over here at 1. So that's our result. Negative 2 plus 3 is just equal to 1. For our next problem, compute negative 7 plus 5, we're going to take the same approach. So start out by constructing a number line. Get that segment, put some arrows on it, put some tick marks on it as well. And we're going to be starting at negative 7. So put negative 7 on the left somewhere. Negative 7. Leave ourselves some room to jump on the right, and then fill in the rest of the tick marks. So negative 7, what's more negative than negative 7? That's negative 8, and then so count up for the rest. Negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. And now it's time to draw this up. So we're starting at negative 7, right over here, and then we're making some jumps of 5 to the right. So 5 is what we're going to be jumping to the right. We can just make 5 unit jumps to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way we get put all those together and get a single jump of plus 5. And where did we end up? Well, we ended up right over here at negative 2. So that's our result. Negative 7 plus 5 is equal to negative 2. Okay, last one. Compute negative 4 plus 4. So again, make a number line, draw that straight edge, and put arrows, put some tick marks, and then our first number will be negative 4, so we want to put that somewhere on the left. Negative 4, negative 5 in the negative direction, then in the positive direction, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, let's draw this up. So starting at negative 4, so put a dot there and make a jump of plus 4 to the right. So jump of plus 4, that's just 4 unit jumps. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that together, those 4 jumps make a single jump of plus 4. And then where did we end up? Well, we ended up right over here, and that's at 0. So that's our result. Negative 4 plus 4 is equal to 0. Alright, so here's some more problems. Now, the way we solved these problems on the previous slide is we drew up a number line. And that made it very clear what's going on, how we're starting at the left number and then making jumps to the right according to whatever the right number is. But the big disadvantage of using a number line for these problems is that it just takes so long to set up and draw what's going on. If we have to use a number line every single time for one of these problems, it's going to take us like a minute to do each problem. But really, there's a much quicker way. And the quicker way is to realize that a negative number plus a positive number is the same as subtracting that number from the positive number. So to do negative 3 plus 6, we can just write that as 6 minus 3. And then that's way easier to do. We know that 6 minus 3 is just 3, so that's our final answer. Likewise, if we have to compute what is negative 8 plus 10, we can just do 10 minus 8. And 10 minus 8, that's just 2. So that was very fast, so much faster than having to construct the number line. We can even do bigger numbers like negative 20 plus 25. Well, that's just 25 minus 20. And what's 25 minus 20? That's just 5. So there you go. Now you see how we can use subtraction to do these problems very quickly. Let's do some more challenging problems which involve fractions now. So we still want to add a positive number to a negative number, but now we have both numbers as fractions. First of all, we want to compute what is negative a half plus 3/2. Now remember, to add fractions, we need to make sure that the fractions have the same denominator. If they have the same denominator, then we can just add the numerators across. And in this case, both fractions have a denominator of 2. So they have the same denominator, and we can add the numerators straight across. So we just have negative 1 plus 3 in the numerator, and that's all over a denominator of 2. So now what we have to do is we have to simplify this numerator, negative 1 plus 3. And that's a lot easier to do. That looks like the problems that we've been doing. To compute negative 1 plus 3, we can just use subtraction. Write it as 3 minus 1, that over 2. And then this problem is a lot easier to do. 3 minus 1 is just 2, so 2 over 2. And then 2 divided by 2, that's just 1. So there we go. That's the result, 1. Alright, let's move on to the next example. Compute negative 5/4 plus 1/2. So again, we're adding two fractions, so we need to make sure the denominators are the same before we can add the numerators. Here the denominators are 4 and 2, so they're not the same. What we have to do first is we have to make the denominators the same so that we can add the fractions. So let's think, what is the least common denominator we can make from 4 and 2? In other words, what is the least common multiple of the denominators 4 and 2? Well, the multiples of 2 are just 2, 4, 6, so on. 4 is one of those multiples, so we can just keep this denominator the same and then figure out a way to change this fraction to have a denominator of 4. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's write this down, negative 5 over 4, then plus 1/2, and then we have to multiply this fraction by some number over some number to get it to have a denominator of 4. And so what do we have to multiply 2 by to get that to 4? Well, we have to multiply by 2. So multiply by 2 over 2, multiplying by the same on top and bottom so that we're not actually changing the fraction, we're just expressing it as an equivalent fraction which has a denominator of 4. And now let's go ahead and simplify this. So this goes to negative 5 over 4, then plus 1 times 2 is 2, over 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, great. So now the fractions have the same denominator, and we can go ahead and add straight across the numerator. So we're going to have negative 5 plus 2 all over 4. Okay, so why don't we use our subtraction trick? We'll turn that to 2 minus 5 over 4. And this subtraction problem is still kind of tricky because we're doing a smaller number minus a bigger number. Okay, so the subtraction trick doesn't simplify this problem so much, but that's okay because we can always use the number line if the subtraction trick doesn't make it simpler. So let's draw a number line, and we're going to be starting at negative 5 and then adding 2, making 2 jumps to the right. So let's draw negative 5 over here, and let's add on some other numbers. Negative 5, what's after negative 5? Well, remember we're counting up, so it's negative 4, and what's after that? Negative 3, then negative 2, and so on. So we'll go ahead and start at that negative 5 over here, and then we'll make 2 jumps to the right. So go over 1, 2. That way the full jump is a plus 2. And where do we end up at? We end up at negative 3. So negative 5 plus 2 over 4 turns into negative 3 over 4. Which is just the same as negative 3/4. Alright, last example, we want to compute negative 2/5 plus 3/2. And again, we need to take a look at the denominators first. They're 5 and 2 right now, but we really want the denominators to be the same. So what is the least common denominator between 5 and 2? In other words, what is the least common multiple between 5 and 2? Well, the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, so on, all the even numbers. And the multiples of 5 are 5, 10, 15, 20. So really just, what is the first even number that's a multiple of 5? 5, 10. 10 is the first even number. So 10 is going to be our common denominator that we want to express both fractions in terms of. So let's go ahead and write down each of the fractions, but we'll go ahead and convert them into equivalent fractions. So negative 2/5, that's our first fraction, and we're going to have to multiply that fraction by something to get to a denominator of 10. What do we have to multiply? Well, what times 5 makes 10? 2 times 5 makes 10. So multiply by 2 on top and bottom. That way we'll get a denominator of 10, but we won't end up actually changing the fraction. It'll just be an equivalent fraction. Okay, and then plus 3 over 2. Same idea. What do we have to multiply by to get a denominator of 10? 2 times what makes 10? Well, 2 times 5 makes 10. So put 5 on top and bottom. And now let's go ahead and compute that. This fraction is a negative times a positive, so the result will be negative. And then multiplying the numerator straight across, 2 times 2 is 4. Denominator straight across, 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, then plus 3 times 5 straight across is 15 over 2 times 5 is 10. Now we have the same denominator here, 10 in both of these denominators, and we can just add the numerators straight across. So negative 4 plus 15 over 10. And now let's use that subtraction trick. Instead of doing negative 4 plus 15, we can write this as just 15 minus 4, which is a lot easier to compute. 15 minus 4 over 10, well, that's just 15 minus 4 is just 11. So 11 over 10 is the result to our computation. Great, so now we know how to add a positive number to a negative number. And in the future, we'll also learn how to add a negative number to a negative number.